Hello, this is an IOL module on teaching students with English as an additional language, presented by me, Gosia Bates. I am an EAL coordinator in a secondary school in Ely College. By the end of this module, I hope you will feel more confident in knowing how does EAL pedagogy inform our planning? What are the common misconceptions about students who are learning English as an additional language? What are the strategies that enable all EAL learners to participate and achieve in mainstream lessons? And where can good quality EAL resources be? So let's start with the EAL pedagogy. This is the latest definition of an EAL learner from the Department for Education. We know that EAL students are not a homogeneous group with second and third generation families, well-settled economic migrants mainly from the European Union countries, and recently some newly arrived students, refugees and asylum seekers. They have varied life and consequently very varied educational experiences. They will all be affected by attitudes towards them, their culture, their language, religion, and ethnicity. EAL is an umbrella term. It's very easy for us to concentrate on new to English because they are so visible in our classrooms. But please do not forget about the more advanced learners of English. The fact that they are communicative or they get by does not necessarily mean that they have mastered the academic language needed for taking and passing GCSEs with good grades. They still need modeling and exposure to good academic English. How long does it take to learn an additional language? We've all been there. We've been trying to learn a language. It depends on so many factors, but also when we talk about fluency, are we talking about being fluent enough to just to chat or to order a meal or to give a formal presentation? That's why I think it's quite important to remember about the label, the EAL. It's an English as an additional language, not English as a foreign language, the one that we need to go on holiday abroad. Our EAL learners have got two tasks. They need to learn English, yes, but they also need to learn the content of the curriculum. Jim Cummins, a well-known figure in the field of EAL, adapted the metaphor of an iceberg to distinguish between basic interpersonal communicative skills and cognitive and academic language proficiency, BICS and CALP for short. All children develop conversational skills first, in face-to-face highly contextualized situations, but it may take longer to develop the language that contributes to educational success. Cummins acknowledged that some interpersonal communication can impose considerable cognitive demands on a speaker, and equally so, academic situations may also require social communication skills, but generally speaking, depending on many factors, children learning an additional language can become conversationally fluent in the new language in 2 to 3 years, but it may take 5 to 7 years to catch up with monolingual peers on the development of CALP. So please remember about the distinction between these two types of language, BICS and CALP, and their rates of development. It might be helpful to know that there are 5 codes used to assess the English proficiency of students who speak English as an additional language. They are from A to E, with A being the lowest one, assigned to new to English. The progress made by the students between the level A and B is usually quite quick. Then there may be a bit of a lull between B and C, and students may stay in the C bracket for quite a long time. Also, the development of various skills comes at various times. Usually the receptive skills like listening and reading come before the expressive ones like speaking and writing. So you will be familiar with the fact that the progress of EAL learners will be a very spiky one. Let's now concentrate on our second learning outcome. And what do we sometimes hear in relation to students learning English as an additional language, according to the EAL Academy? They have got no language. Now, it's very important to remember that students beginning their journey in EAL have got language, sometimes more than one. They've got 2 or 3 languages. It's just that they haven't yet acquired English. They are perfectly able to understand and express themselves and otherwise communicate in at least one language, as I said, often more than one language. The second misconception is that they have got special needs. Now, this is very important to stress that the inability to speak fluent or any English is not a learning difficulty unless proven, nor it is a sign of having below average intelligence, nor is it an indication that the student in question will fail to learn and thrive. And pupils who are learning English as an additional language are no more likely to have special educational needs than any other pupils. The next misconception is that they should be placed in the bottom sets. It is sometimes felt that EAL learners will make faster progress if they receive attention from support staff, who are often deployed to work with the lower teaching sets. However, as I said before, a lack of fluent English does not mean that a pupil is struggling with learning, and students who are developing fluency in English should be given the best opportunities to make progress in curriculum subjects. Sometimes the slower pace in lower sets can be a disincentive or can induce frustration or boredom. Students will not be interested in coloring different sheets. They were thriving in their countries and they want to thrive in the UK. Also, the subject-based language that the new learners are likely to encounter in bottom sets may not be the clearest model of what is required for the academic performance. And the last misconception is that they should be withdrawn until they have enough English to be in my lesson. Now, the idea of English in this comment is quite vague and unspecified, unlike the academic language of school subjects, which follows clear patterns and makes clear demands on all learners, not just those with EAL. Students who are developing fluency in English need to develop their skills in academic English as well as their subject knowledge, so they've got 2 tasks to do. And the best person to help EAL learners with this is the subject teachers. You are the experts in your subject content and also the vocabulary and structures and writing styles that are necessary to be successful in your subjects. The main principles of good practice in teaching English as an additional language are as follows. Activating prior knowledge. All students come with certain knowledge. Provide comprehensible input. Encourage talk and collaboration. So the current emphasis on oracy is really good for EAL learners. And also I must stress what is good for EAL is good for monolingual students too. Pay attention to language functions and grammar choices. And develop vocabulary in context. We need to hear different words many times before they are safely stored in our memory. And we need to hear them in different contexts, not only once. It also helps when we see them written, because knowing how to pronounce a word is quite empowering. I find this glossary of EAL teaching and learning techniques from NALDIC, which is the National Association of Language Development in the Curriculum, quite useful. It's very helpfully set out that you can see various techniques to use to develop speaking, listening, reading and writing skills of your EAL students. I have put the link to this website on one of my last slides. The next 8 slides are really just very self-explanatory of various ideas how you can adapt your materials and how they can be made into a comprehensible input, how they can be used to activate prior knowledge, how they can also be used to assess EAL learners. So using all the visuals, key visuals, not just pictures, but diagrams, timelines, flowcharts, mind maps, anything that enables to express knowledge is quite helpful. Strategies like matching vocabulary, matching different parts of the sentences are also very helpful. Definitions with the pictures. Any sorts of graphic organizers. Substitution tables are quite useful. They can be the ones used just with pictures, or can be used with pictures and words, later just with words. Another substitution table here is as a way of supporting the writing of specific grammatical points. Here we are concentrating on noun phrases, so we could add a picture of or 3 pictures of different houses and then ask the students to write the description of what they see. Another idea from the Bell Foundation, using keywords to translate, so use the translation and use them in an example, so use them in a sentence, not just the word. It's useful to have the word translated in a context. Some more filling the table ideas. Now the helpful pointers to aid with the support in the classroom, apart from anything mentioned before. I quite like buddying students with a strong speaker and listener. Of course, if you have the speaker of the same language, that may be helpful, particularly in the beginning stages of the time when this new student is settling in. But keep an eye on the relationship between the two students. The fact that they speak the same language does not necessarily mean that they might like each other. It also is very tiring and to help the new students in the class, in the lesson. So the well-established speaker of that language may not want to do it or may feel uncomfortable in doing so. It can be good to buddy them with a strong speaker of English or any empathetic student sensitive to the needs who is a good listener. When you are putting your key words, as I said before, it's helpful if you write them down on the board as well, because English, with being such an inconsistent phonetically language, it's very difficult to master the pronunciation and the spelling. So it helps to see the words written down. Encourage talk between students. I think that's particularly useful in the forums, in your tutor time, when it can be an excellent opportunity to create some structured conversation. You can give various students the task of preparing a conversation with all the necessary vocabulary. It is a very short period of time, so it's not too onerous. And it will help the majority to get to know the EAL students. So it's a good pastoral practice. You can also ask the EAL students if they are willing and help and want to teach other students some bits of their language. That can help with their pledges. Group work. When arranging group work, please remember that sometimes the self-selecting groups may want to leave out the EAL students, so keep an eye on that. If you are pairing students doing a pair work, it's helpful to have 3 students, 1 EAL and 2 monolingual students, because in those beginning stages of acquiring English, it is difficult to participate in the conversation. So it can be a little bit too demanding. So it takes the demand and the pressure of the EAL students to perform if he or she can hear the monolingual students speaking between themselves. And also the English speakers will have somebody, a partner, to respond, whereas the EAL learner will just listen and learn. It is still active listening and learning. Another one is try to find unobtrusive moments in lessons to check the EAL students have understood. It's quite difficult to do so because you don't want to draw publicly attention to the possibility that they have not understood, because it's likely to make life hard for them. So encourage all students to ask for clarification when necessary. Or you may want to establish some sort of a sign with the EAL learner. Let's say put a ruler on my book if I need help. It could be something that they are not put out in the spotlight. And finally, talk to your new students. I think quite often they spend the whole day not talking to anybody, and they can feel very isolated. So I realize that in the early stages of their English acquisition, it can be very difficult to chat. But I think all the students would be very grateful indeed for your effort, time, and attention. So even at first, if you just target them with the very closed questions, are you okay? Is it good? And then proceed to more open questions. Do you like this or do you like that? Anything that requires their answer would be helpful. The Bell Foundation is very helpful if you are looking for resources, blogs, webinars, anything really on EAL. They also compiled a great ideas page, which is very helpful with all sorts of ideas to use in your lessons. Quickly touching on possible assessment, I often get questions, how do we assess the students when they still cannot express their knowledge? One of the ideas I found on the EAL Daylight website, it is just copy the correct sentence. So you can put 2 sentences and model for the students to copy the correct one to express their knowledge. Any activities related to text mentioned here, like highlighting, sorting, sequencing, matching phrases and pictures, filling in the gaps, can be all adapted for both comprehensible input, activating prior knowledge, and also assessment. Do not forget the use of first language and translanguaging, which is also very helpful. So here was the idea of some science assessment when the students was asked in Russian to write or draw what they knew about different topics. So where can good quality EAL resources be found? I've put links to various websites here. There are some about booklets for new students with the school vocabulary. This one will be particularly helpful for tutors. There is some for math teachers. Bell Foundation has got loads of resources, high, good quality resources for various subjects. You will need to open an account, register and open an account, but it's free and it's pretty quick. Another website, Collaborative Learning, again, they've got resources for various subjects, and this is what I like, the collaborative and the oracy of students. Gordon Ward, who developed Racing to English programs, has got some teaching resources on WordWall. These I would probably use as a follow-up after the lesson or as a pre-teaching ideas. Anything for visuals, the Noun project icons are quite good to make some visual resources. The next 3 websites are the glossary of strategies I mentioned from Naldic, the Bell Foundation Great Ideas page, and the Bell Foundation YouTube webinars. There are loads of webinars, so you choose whichever you would like, you would have time to watch. Touching on technology, Microsoft Translator app is quite useful if you need to have a discussion with the student, academic mentoring, or with the parents. There are letters you send in advance to parents in their language. I think it's in about 60 or so languages, so it's quite a vast array of languages. Asking the parent to download the app and making sure they bring it to the meeting with you. And then you can have a conversation, either two-way conversation or a group conversation as well. So it is quite helpful. But as I mentioned, proceed with caution. It's brilliant, but it's still, if possible, run anything by a human being. But 2 things also that can be helpful in the classroom is that you can add subtitles in many languages to your PowerPoint, and this is a 4-minute instruction how to do that. Or you can translate the slides. Again, it's a tutorial how to do this. I think some of our students found it quite useful and helpful. Books. There are many books on EAL, but these two are my to-go-to when I need quick ideas which do not require much preparation. The 100 Ideas series is well known. There is a separate book for secondary and separate for primary EAL learners. The EAL pocketbook is really very practical, full of really very good ideas. I hope this IOL module has been useful. It's a really quick snapshot of all things EAL, but if you have any further questions on ideas, strategies, assessment, please do not hesitate to get in touch. Equally so, if you have any ideas tried and tested that worked really well in your classroom, please do drop me a line and I can compile a list of things what works for us best. There is also a Pebble session for middle and senior leaders on leading on EAL provision. But for now, thank you very much for your time, and I hope you will have a great learning and teaching experience with your EAL learners. Thank you very much.